Greetings to you. I do want to welcome each and every one of you. We have been waiting on this day for a few days, and here we are. Welcome. Welcome to you watching us in Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, across Canada. Today we do have a very, very, very somebody who is very special to me in particular. Spencer. I will not say much about Spencer. I've been, putting a lot of ads about Spencer. I will give Spencer this opportunity to introduce himself to our Angolan community and say a few words.
Well, Eddie, thank you so much for having me. It really is a pleasure, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can, share my knowledge however I can. Bit about myself, I was born and raised in Canada. My professional background is in finance and mining specifically, in, buying and selling gold mines, basically, in South America and Canada. And with that, I studied finance. Eddie and I took a course together. That's how we know each other.
Mhm.
And, I'd say I have a basic knowledge of, finances and banks and financial institutions and how to get set. Recently purchased a house, have, had a bank account since I was a kid and have been managing that since I was a kid. So,
Mhm.
I have a few investments as well in certain investment vehicles that we'll get into later on today, I'm sure. And yeah, I'd say that's about it about me. There's much more to know, I'm sure, but to for the context of this is who I am.
Beautiful. Now, Spencer, I don't know. I think I have some questions here. I don't know if you want me to start with questions or you want me to just let you take the lead. Um, I've been asked to ask you that if somebody wants to buy a home, there are typically four people you need to go through. Number one is
Mhm.
mortgage broker. Number two is a real estate agent. Number three is a home inspector, and four, a lawyer. Did you go through that experience yourself? What do you have to say about these four people in particular?
Yeah, I'd say um, I can touch on each one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one you mentioned was the mortgage broker. Mortgage broker is crucial because they're the ones that are going to get you approved for the loan. Now, a mortgage broker can be, usually there's someone who introduces you to an institution that will lend you the money.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go directly to a bank, for example, and let's say you go to RBC and you get a mortgage approved. They would act as the mortgage broker as well, but they are also the bank to lend the money.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, I went to a mortgage broker. His name's Carl. He's very, smart guy, and he put together a few different options for me in terms of mortgages and got me the best rate that I wanted to pay for as high of a mortgage that I could get approved for. And that's where mortgage brokers are very useful because they can um, get you the best deal that would be otherwise very difficult to get for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The second person you mentioned, I think it was the real estate agent.
Real estate agent, yes.
Yes,
Real
yeah,
estate agent.
they're also very important.
Mm-hmm.
In order to buy a house, it has to go through a real estate agent. Now, there's two real estate agents on either side. There's the side of the buyer and the side of the seller. Sometimes, there's one real estate agent that acts for both,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not often the case. So, the real estate agent is someone that you will discuss with. You'll tell them exactly what you want in a house. You'll tell them how much you can afford based off of your conversations with the mortgage broker, and you'll tell them, what areas you want to look at, and they will send you every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, different listings in the area, and they will take you to see those listings, and they will basically be the ones to negotiate on your behalf with the realtor on the other side. who's negotiating on the seller's best interest as well. So once you have your mortgage approved, once you have your real estate um, agent, getting you the house for you,
Hmm.
then you mentioned the third person was
Home inspector,
the
home
home inspector.
inspector.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the next step as well. Once you get your home, when you're in the process, ideally, when you're in the process of looking for a home, you have a home inspector come and look at the home
Hmm.
um, before you put an offer on. I say ideally because that's not always the case.
Hmm.
Experientially, when I went to go and buy a house, the market was um, it was pretty crazy. So the house that I'm in now, I only saw for about 30 minutes um,
Wow,
at night. So I didn't see
wow,
the neighborhood, I didn't see the house or anything,
wow.
and I had to put in an offer with no conditions and no home inspection to look at it, because that was the only way I could get a house.
Mm.
However, the first thing I did once I put an offer and it was approved was call a home inspector, and he came in and did a very thorough search of the entire house, so I knew what I was dealing with.
Now,
Yeah,
Spencer,
yeah,
let's say when the home
yeah.
inspector came, if
Yes.
if he spotted some things and he sort of brought it to your attention, would that have
Mhm.
made change your mind on the decision of buying a home if those things that he spotted were very serious?
Yes, that's the whole benefit of having a house inspector or a home inspector come in and do that. Now, unfortunately, in my case, I'd already bought the house, and yeah, I had to deal with it in any case. So I was very fortunate. I looked at it myself and saw from the surface level there's nothing wrong, but I'm fortunate that there wasn't actually anything wrong.
Hmm.
But ideally, yes, you get them in before you buy the house. So if you're
Yes.
going to put an offer on a house, the best case scenario is that you put the condition that the offer is conditional upon a home inspection
Mm.
or conditional upon financing, which just means conditional upon getting the mortgage fully approved. So
Hmm.
um, maybe we can touch on that in a second. But at a high level, the mortgage broker, you get a pre-approval for a mortgage, and then when you do the full closing of the house, often that's when you get the full approval of the mortgage, and then it goes through the bank.
Hmm.
Um, and then the last person was the lawyer, right?
Yeah, lawyer.
Um,
I
so
think lawyer is when things are signed, sealed, and delivered. Lawyer, I think, he has a huge big piece he plays in this, right?
they don't actually play as big of a role as you might imagine.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
It's it's usually the real estate agents have legal documents that
They work
are
with.
templates and that are
Uh-huh.
universally understood. So when the agent puts out that, uses that template and puts the offer back and forth, those offers are usually just accepted without
Hmm.
really any need for intervention or need for a lawyer to look at it.
Hmm.
However, it's good to have a lawyer to come in and make sure that everything's checked, make sure everything's in place. But they just come in and do a spot check. They don't really do any of the heavy lifting. That's oftentimes just the realtor who does that.
Wow.
And if it's just a usual house, like if you're looking for a single family home or something of that nature, that's typically a very simple purchase, and lawyers don't really need to get involved too much with a purchase like that. So they can play a role if you're investing in more complex assets, maybe
Hmm.
multifamily homes that you want to
Hmm.
rent out, um, you know, a unit or something of that nature. It's good to have a
Hmm.
lawyer involved for liability purposes.
Yes.
They're also good to have. I'll maybe tack one other person on. It's if you want to do something more complex or do any renovations to the house to increase the value, you would need to go through a lawyer or a city inspector and a
Hmm.
city representative to make sure that you're allowed to do what you want to do. It could be as simple as building a shed. If the shed, exceeds a certain size, But you need that shed for your tools. Sometimes you have to go through a lawyer or go through a city representative to see if that's allowed, and then they'll
Mhm.
draft that up for you.
Mhm.
But oftentimes their involvement is pretty little, maybe surprisingly little in my
Wow.
area.
And when you say surprisingly, I was like, wow, I thought they play a huge, huge major role in somebody's decision to buy a home. Wow, that I've learned. I've
Mhm.
learned something new. Yes. Yes. Now, can you walk us through, you said you recently bought a house. Can you walk us through the process? How your own personal experience?
Yeah, certainly. It was a long process. It was a long process of looking, but the process of starting to be serious and then buying a house was very quick.
Hmm.
Um, but I'll start from the start. The
Hmm.
process of I was living downtown, and my wife and I wanted to start a family and needed a bigger house. As is often the case. So we wanted to move from a condo to a family home with bedrooms and a backyard, that sort of thing. So the first thing we did was look at several areas that we were comfortable living in. Around Toronto, there were a few that we were looking at. We liked east of the city, in Durham region, so we liked Pickering, Ajax, Whitby, those kind of core areas.
Hmm.
Then within that, we just on the weekends would drive around and look at the areas and see if we could get a feel for the neighborhoods, get a feel for the where the schools are located, get a feel for how the infrastructure of these cities, of these towns, suburbs are built.
Hmm.
Are there grocery stores? Are there walking paths? That sort of thing. And then we defined a few neighborhoods that we liked. So specifically, we looked at Pickering, Whitby, and Ajax. Pickering was good, but it was a little bit too expensive for us because it is
Hmm.
closer to the city.
Yes.
Whitby is a little too far away from the city for us. We both work downtown, so it's just a little bit too far. But that was really the only reason. And then Ajax kind of fit nice in the middle where we could afford it, and it was still a reasonable distance away.
Hmm.
So having defined Ajax, we then defined a few neighborhoods that we wanted to live in. There's the Nottingham neighborhood. There's the neighborhood we live in. There's Imagination. These kind of core neighborhoods around where they have plenty of schools and childcare facilities and grocery stores, and down the street from the GO train station, which is good, and also down the street from a plaza that has Canadian Tire, Home Depot, restaurants, everything you need. So having found those neighborhoods, we
Hmm.
then kept an eye on it for houses. Now, houses didn't pop up all the time. It was in the market where it was difficult. There was very little supply. Um, so, and we bought it in 2021. I'd say we moved in 2021
Hmm.
January.
Hmm.
So we bought it November 2020 and moved in end of January 2021. And we then just kind of kept a tracker on places popped up. As soon as they would pop up in these neighborhoods we liked, we'd go see them, and if it checked our boxes, we put it on offer. We had to put in several offers, maybe half a dozen, full-fledged offers before we got our place. And then ended up, once we started looking, ended up having to act very quickly. Like I said, I saw this place for only 30 minutes. We couldn't put any conditions, no financing, no inspection conditions, nothing, just in order to get it. And we had to put in a bully offer as well, which is um, a bully offer is when there's an offer on, the house is listed
Hmm.
and it has a bid date. So on that date, everyone submits their offers. So it's also called an offer date, and the seller will pick one. A bully
Hmm.
offer is when you go in and put an offer above what they're asking for before the offer date, so that you can try to entice them to just give them the price that they want without having to deal with any sort of bidding war.
Hmm.
And that's the strategy that we chose, and it worked. So of course, we had to pay above asking, but everything was going above asking at that time anyway.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Now, what we did, kind of an interesting strategy. My wife got her real estate license prior to buying the house, purely for just for us to buy the house, to save the 2.5% commission.
Mm-hmm.
We actually received that back to us instead of paying them.
Sorry, who gets that 2.5% commission?
So from the seller's side, their realtor gets 2.5%, and from the buyer's side, their realtor gets 2.5% of the value of the house. So that's the fee that the realtor takes.
Mm-hmm.
And something to keep in mind too, if you got to make sure you get a good realtor, right? Because it's 2.5% of the value of the house, they're incentivized to make a larger deal.
Yes.
So you may want to save a lot of money on a house, which of course is natural. And
Mm.
the realtor may say they want to save you money too, but they're really not going to try as hard to save you money, depending on who it is,
Mm-hmm.
because they're incentivized to,
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
to get the bigger commission check out of it.
Yes. Yes.
So that was the process, and then we signed the documents. It was a 3-month close. So we gave our notice downtown, and then, like I said, bought in November, and then end of January moved in.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Congratulations, Spencer.
Yeah, thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, for a new immigrant, let's
Yeah.
talk about Angolans who has moved into the city and settled again and got a job. Wife is working, the husband is working. Now, what are some of the basics we can give them to start getting ready to this process that you went through of one day owning a home or a condo?
Well, I think the best place to start is getting that mortgage pre-approval. And to get a mortgage pre-approval, several boxes need to be checked.
Mm-hmm.
The salary wise, for example, when a house, they'll take household salary, likely of both of the husband and wife, or if whoever else in the family is going to be on the title. That needs to be taken into account of how much are they making, how consistent is that money. So if you're an employee, for example, you need 3 months of uh, basically pay stubs of salary to show that this is how much you need. If you're a private contractor, if you're an entrepreneur, it's more difficult, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
because you need about 2 years of consistent pay to show that this is how much you're making. So if you own a company, you need to have been doing that for 2 years. So checking those boxes, though, that will tell you how much you're eligible for a mortgage. Um, there will be more boxes like a credit check. So a credit score,
Credits. Mm-hmm.
yeah, a credit score is important for banks because it shows them that you're trustworthy,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to have a credit score, you need to have a credit card that you use and that you pay off before you accrue any interest on it. Before they start charging you interest on it. Those are the big ones. They just want to see financial stability and a good credit score. And the once those boxes are checked, it's just dependent on the mortgage broker that you're talking to and the financial institution you're going with. If there are issues in, well, let me say it may not be as difficult as imagined, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone imagines getting a mortgage, they have to walk into RBC and try to get approved from the bank, and the bank is very, very strict.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy to get a mortgage pre-approval from the bank. In fact, I didn't go to a bank to get a mortgage
So
pre-approval.
you went through a mortgage broker?
I went through a mortgage broker, and then a mortgage broker, if you have a good mortgage broker, they will find an option for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the issue might be if you don't go through an A lender. A bank is called an A lender. They're like one of
Mm-hmm.
the top class.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through a B lender, which is also other banks or financial institutions. They're also quite good.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Use it as an opportunity
To drink yet.
to drink some water. Um, so yeah, there's different tiers. You have your A lenders and B lenders, and I guess possibly C lenders as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, The differences being that you can get a mortgage from any one of them, but you may be paying different interest rates. So, there's pros and cons to each. You may, if you go through a lower lender, you may have to pay higher interest rates because they may view you as a higher risk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, if you're getting a house, then that's reasonable because, a house will appreciate likely higher than the interest rates will be.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can afford the interest rates, then it's okay. Um, but a bank, the benefits of going through a bank are that they are reputable, and
Yes.
if you need anything, they're there. And
Mm-hmm.
something that's important that a bank offers that um, very few people utilize, and in fact, we may have to just have a whole new session on this
Mm-hmm.
strategy. But
Mm-hmm.
a home equity line of credit is what banks
Mm-hmm.
offer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the key to unlocking a lot of investment strategies.
Mm-hmm.
But lower bank or lower tiered lenders don't always offer HELOCs, or what they're called, the home equity line of credit, just short form to HELOC.
Mm-hmm.
So a lower tiered credit facility may not offer those. So there's pros and cons of each. And what you need for them just depends on the mortgage broker.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. There's there's so much information to digest. I tell you, you're saying so many things that I have never known, and I'm learning so much just just talking with you today. Um, you mentioned the 2.5%. That's what the you said the who gets that? It's
The realtors.
commission for realtor. So
Mhm.
you're looking for the mortgage broker, the real estate agent, and home inspector and the lawyer. That's they share that 2.5%, or does each one of them?
Only the realtors get that
Okay,
2.5%.
okay,
The mortgage broker will get. They have a more complex commission structure, and it's based on the mortgage that you
okay,
get. So
okay,
it doesn't really have anything to do with the sale of the house. I
okay,
mean, I think it closes upon the sale of the house, but
hmm
it's not shared with the realtor. The home inspector, that's just a flat fee. They'll take cash. You give them cash, they'll do that. And the lawyer is also a flat fee.
flat fee. And what about insurance when you buy a house? Like, do you have to buy insurance for?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. House insurance you know, is necessary.
And does the bank sell you that, or do you find your own
You
insurance company?
can, you might be able to go through the bank to get it. Depending on if they offer packages or something. Sometimes they do.
Hmm
Oftentimes, you can just go to insurance agents and, even the mortgage broker, or maybe even the realtor, and maybe even the bank will be able to recommend partners to go through. So the insurance that I go through is Desjardins specifically, and
hmm
the mortgage that I have is with a company called RFA. So they're two different. Um, they don't offer bundles on either or, but um, yeah, you definitely need house insurance, home insurance, because things can go wrong for no reason in a
hmm
house. You never know what can happen. And it's good to
Yeah,
have that.
you're right. You're right. Now, for the first-time buyer, home buyers, or
Mhm.
maybe condo buyers, so we hear a lot about this 20% down payment and the
Yes.
5% down payment. It's kind
Yes.
of confusing, but why? Tell us the difference between the 20% down payment and the 5% down payment.
Yeah, and that's the first time home buyers, incentive, reward, call it what you will. That's what I used personally as well. So the first time home buyers means that up to $500,000 you of property value, you can put 5% down. Anything over that, up to a million, you have to pay 20.
Mhm,
Um, Now, if you're going to buy a house that's a million, as soon as it hits that threshold, there's no blended rate. It's just 20%. So
mhm.
if you want to really take advantage of the first time home buyers, um, I would say stay within 500,000, but in Toronto, let's be
In
real, that's
Toronto,
very
it's
difficult.
impossible. It is
Yeah,
impossible.
I actually, yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
right. I don't think it is possible to
yeah,
stay within 500.
yeah.
So, but up to that first 500,000, it's 5%. So let's say you buy a house that's maybe just shy of a million, so you don't hit
Mhm,
that threshold, then
mhm,
you'll pay closer to like 10%, right? Because it's a blend of that 5 and the 20.
mhm.
Um, so that's that's basically how it works. Like mine, I think I paid something like close to 10%
Okay.
down payment,
Mhm.
because of the first time home buyers
Yes.
incentive.
Yes. Yes. Wow. 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 That's now. What else would you think is important for the Angolans to know? Anything else you think they want to know about getting ready to buy or preparing for them to get to the stage of owning something in Canada?
Yeah, something to keep in mind. I mean, there's a lot. I think the list is it can go on and on and on. But
Mhm.
something that comes to mind now is we're in an environment where the bank is raising interest rates pretty
Mhm.
frequently,
Mhm.
and a a big part of the mortgage is the interest payment. So a mortgage, there's the bank will calculate a mortgage payment, and it's honestly quite a simple calculation. But let's say it's over 30 years, or maybe 25 years is the period to pay down the house. um, there's a portion of that that's interest, and there's a portion of that that is what's called principal, which is
Mhm.
just going right to the house. Now in
Mhm.
the first few years, it's usually like this, where you have your interest and then only a little bit of principal, and then that kind of changes as you go on, because there's less and less interest to pay.
Mhm.
Now if interest rates go up, as they are, almost all of those a lot of that mortgage payment initially is just going to be interest payment. So it's going to be either a longer duration, if that's allowed, to pay down the house, or it's going to be a higher mortgage payment, which is more likely because they don't allow to really extend the duration of paying down the house. And something to note is locking in interest rates if it's possible. So that's something to really have a good conversation with a mortgage broker with, is to see if you can lock in interest rates at a lower rate, or see what they think, if it makes more sense to lock one in or
Mhm.
to go with a variable interest rate, which just means that whatever it is what you're paying. I locked in my interest rate for 5 years so that
Mhm.
I know exactly what I'm paying, and then it doesn't shift. Because I think the interest rates are going to continue to go up, because that's what the bank said they're going to do.
Mhm.
Um, so that's something to consider, something to talk with the mortgage broker with, is that can really shape how much you have to pay every month, for a mortgage. And uh, in terms of looking at a house, um, you I look at it from an investment perspective.
Mhm.
The house I
Mhm.
bought is first and foremost an investment.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I looked at something, for example, it's an unfinished basement. There was very little done to the backyard, to the front.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very easy fixes for me
Mhm.
to increase the value. Painted the garage doors, got a new door, that increased the value. Did a deck, put a patio in the back, that increased the value. I'm in the middle of finishing the basement right now, that's going to increase the value. So
Mhm.
things like that, that are right then and there, may seem like it's more work and maybe not live-in ready. If it's done right, can also increase the value of the house much more than you would have to put into it. So that's a really good consideration to look at. Is figuring out what are simple ways to increase the value of a home, and if those are missing in the places that you're looking at. Uh, I think those are the kind of the two that stick out of my mind right now. Like I said, it's such a long list; it's hard to
It is. It is.
pick
It
and
is.
choose from.
Now, it seems as if it is really difficult for, let's say, if somebody's single, right?
Mhm.
Um, just a single income. It seems like it's really, really like it's an uphill battle to buy anything if you're single, like
Yeah,
you know.
it is.
if even a condo.
Even a condo is hard. And
Yeah.
now, maybe more generally, there are alternatives than buying a place to live in yourself. And if rent is reasonable and it's affordable, that's okay. If you still want to buy a place, it doesn't have to be in Toronto. It doesn't have to be in the GTA. It
You're
can be
right.
elsewhere in Canada.
You're right. You're right.
It can even be something like a pre-construction,
Wow.
where typically they cost less,
Hmm.
and you don't get to live in it right away, but they cost less, and it appreciates as time goes on.
Hmm.
So that can be a good investment as well.
Hmm.
So there's other alternatives. I have friends that are single that want to get into the real estate market too, and they simply can't, because they just can't get into
It's
it, and
it's
that's what I've been
hard.
recommending to them. So
Yes.
one of them, uh, still rents, but just went and decided to buy a property in Windsor and rent that out,
Wow. Wow.
because it's so much more affordable
Cheaper,
there. Yeah.
affordable. Yeah. Yes.
And they were able to get approved. They were able to get a place, and now it's giving them some cash every month. Right?
Hmm.
And as the house appreciates, they also get that appreciation out of it.
Hmm.
But they
Hmm.
don't own anything that they live in, and they're okay with that. They just continue to pay rent while they continue to make cash from their investment property.
Mm. Do you think maybe down the road, if the property, goes up, and they may sell it and then be able to afford anything? Do you think that may be a path for them to one day maybe owning something?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
certainly. I mean, that's the whole point of getting into the It's just getting into the real estate market at any capacity. I
Hmm.
think is the best strategy to do. So even, let's look at this Windsor property, for example. My
Hmm.
friend, let's they buy it for 400,000, right?
Yes.
And they can rent out, maybe even 2 units.
Hmm.
Um, so every single month they're making cash. That there's cash right there. Now, if it's a property that requires a bit of work, there's something called active appreciation, which is just another way of saying, well, their lawn hasn't been done, or they need to redo the windows or something like that. Well, you go and do the lawn, you go and redo the windows, you go and add in a new washing machine or something like that. All of a sudden, you can charge more rent, and all of a sudden, the property is worth more. So that's active appreciation.
Hmm.
So you have your rent coming in, you have your active appreciation, and you have something that's a little more complex. But as you pay down the mortgage, you have more equity in the house. So that you're paying less interest, and you have more equity in the house. So you're
Hmm.
also making money from that. And every 5 years, typically you refinance the house, and then there's the difference between your book value and how much it's worth now every 5 years, and you have all that equity that you can take out in a HELOC from what we talked about before, and you can use that as cash to buy a house, to buy
Hmm.
something else.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of ways to make money from a property,
Yes.
a lot of
Yes.
ways.
Yes. Yes.
So certainly, if you buy a property, even if it's a $400,000 property in Windsor, that can most likely help you get a property for you yourself to live in, down the road in a few
Oh.
years.
Hmm. Or somebody may also decide, I want to live in Windsor. If they may also
Certainly,
move there, or they may live in London, Ontario, which
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Toronto's it's like Toronto's just a very expensive city. It's
it's
not.
insane. It's
Yeah,
insane.
it's
I mean, I lived my entire life in Toronto. I tell you, I mean, when I came, houses where when I came in 2000, you can get a house 150,000, 200,000. 2006, you could get something at Scarborough, 350,000. But now those 350,000 homes you could buy in 26, they are like million now. It's crazy.
hmm
Toronto
hmm
is absolutely crazy. So,
yeah.
um,
It honestly doesn't make sense for
but
a lot of people to live here.
why is housing so expensive in Toronto? Like, is there a reason why the pricing of housing in Toronto is expensive? Is that immigration? Does it play a big part in that?
It
Or
plays a huge part. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
lot of foreign investment.
yeah,
Thing is, there's a lot of vacant properties. It's just money comes from all over the world. Oftentimes, money comes from China, and they
Mm.
want to basically wash their dollars. Have safer dollars than the yuan or the renminbi if that's what they're forced to use,
Hmm.
and they'll just buy properties and nobody lives in them, but they'll
Wow.
have it because it's safer to them. So
Wow. Wow.
um, yeah, there's a lot of that, and that drives the prices up. It's mostly foreign investment because local Canadians can't buy houses, so it's it's definitely not us trying to buy
You're
houses.
right. You're right.
Mhm.
You're right. Now, um, so if somebody wants to buy, I think the number one, you know, let's say somebody gets pre-approved for mortgage, I don't know, 400,000 or 500,000. So
Mhm.
then you are forced to look for a place where that budget fits,
Mhm.
where, yeah. So you will be forced to look. Let's say you've been pre-approved for $500,000. So it means you have to look for a place where you can afford a 500,000 home, right?
Yep.
500,000 home. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Otherwise, you can't buy the
You
property.
can't. You can't. Yes, you cannot buy
Mhm.
it.
Now,
Now,
again, it doesn't
now
necessarily mean you need to move there, though.
you're
Like
right.
you can have it as an investment property.
You're right. Now, when you get pre-approved, let's say for 500,000 in a bank,
Mhm.
is there a way the bank can increase the 500,000 to maybe, let's say, 900,000? What do you need to do for them to increase that amount further? Is there?
Well, the simplest answer, but not the simplest thing to do, is to
Mhm.
just make more money, and then they'll allow you to basically take on more of a mortgage. That or
Mhm.
have someone co-sign who is more established and has property and does make more.
Mhm.
Having a co-signer helps a lot too, and especially if they have property that they're willing to what's called secure against it. That means that if you can't pay the mortgage, or if the person co-signing can't pay the mortgage, then the bank is entitled to that person's house,
Mhm.
um, which sounds risky
Wow.
for sure.
It is. It is.
But if you run the numbers and say, hey, I let's say you're a private contractor, or you own your own business, but you just don't have the financials there yet. But if you say, like, hey, based of based on this business that I have, like, I can very easily afford a $900,000 house,
Mhm.
but the
Mhm.
bank just won't give it to me. So you find someone to co-sign with you, and you know they they take on the risk for sure. But if you understand that it's if you know for a fact, you've run the numbers, it's very easy to pay off the mortgage on your $900,000 house, then there's not really that much of a risk. It just
Mhm.
means now you have the house, and now you get the appreciation from it and everything else that comes with it.
Now we're getting a question from eDigital. He's saying, "Hi everybody, I have a question. What is the minimum down payment amount required from the banks?"
Hmm.
Can you
Uh,
answer that? Hmm.
yeah, for sure. And well, again, it depends on if it's the first time home buyers or not. If it is not your first time buying a house in Canada specifically, then if it's not the first time, then it's 20%. That's the minimum down payment. If it is the first time, up until 500,000, it's 5% down. Um, and maybe one other alternative, if you're buying a pre-construction, this is another thing we could probably have a whole session on. If you're buying a pre-construction, it's 20%, but it's split over 2 years. So it's about 5% every 6 months if you want to work it that way. And that's also another alternative. That's something I recently bought a pre-construction as well, just for an investment purposes in Markham, and that's the way that it's structured. I bought it a while ago, and it's nearing close to construction, and I'm still paying the down payment because it
Hmm.
takes so long to pay the down payment. So you can just you don't need to stress about throwing 20% right away, right? You can work
Yes.
for 5% increments.
Yes. Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, do you know the trends? What are the trends saying about, real estate market. Can you give us an insight of how things are gonna look with the Bank of Canada rising the interest, and what are the trends showing? Like, will the market crash? Will it still be solid? Will the pricing get expensive?
Uh, well, I mean, it's really hard to say for certain what's going to happen. What has been happening is, um, it's it's calmed down a bit. It's calmed down a lot. The market, it's not increasing at such a rapid rate every month
Hmm.
anymore. It's kind of just flat where it is, and it's a little bit. People can breathe more when they're trying to buy a house now. Like they don't need to pay, 100,000, 200, sometimes $800,000 over asking, which I've seen people do. Now they can pay, roughly asking price, and sometimes even put in, a house inspection condition or a financing condition or things like that.
Hmm.
So it's returned to a little bit more of a normal market. Now, in terms of a crash, I, who knows? It's really hard to say if that will happen. In terms of prices going down, even, I don't know. Maybe, maybe. Um, I don't really think they'll go down. At least not for any meaningful amount of time. Maybe there will be a couple pockets here and there, but ultimately, I imagine they will continue to go up based
Hmm.
on continued foreign investment and
Hmm.
continued population growth and immigration policies, and based on continued, you know, being very slow in infrastructure development. So there's a supply demand differential there that has not nearly been filled whatsoever. And when
Hmm.
that continues to be in place, housing prices are going to continue to be high.
Hmm.
Now they just might not grow as fast as interest rates increase because less and less people can be approved for high amounts of mortgages because the mortgages will be higher with the interest rates are higher.
Yes. Yes. Wow. I don't have any more questions. I don't know if you may have anything else you may think it's important for people to know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I didn't. I think we covered a
We
lot.
covered, yeah, we covered a
Yeah.
lot. Yes, we did. We covered a lot. Well, if we don't have anything else, maybe today we will call it a wrap, right?
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
completely your call.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to hop on these too. Like, if you have any questions or if anyone has any questions,
Let's
you can
see.
reach
Another
out to me.
question. What are the requirements banks look before someone is approved? Okay, this is a good question. We got some folks
Yeah.
asking questions here. Let me pop it up there.
Okay.
It's still digital. Is it another? What are the requirements banks look at before someone is approved for mortgage? I think you covered that already, but you can go ahead and answer
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a lot of information that was covered. So if I need to say a few things a couple times, that there's no issue there.
Yeah.
Um, so to get pre-approved for a mortgage, the basic things that any lender will want to see is financial stability and a good credit score. So to elaborate on financial stability, uh, if you're an employee, you need to show that you have 3 months of pay stubs, and whatever your bonus is, they can see annually how much you're going to make, and it's with certainty because you're an employee. They don't they don't put too many restrictions on employees. If you are a business owner or a private contractor, you need to show 2 years of income to show that to show the banks that there is financial stability there. So it is much more difficult, unfortunately, to be an entrepreneur, um, in any capacity. And I say unfortunately because we certainly entrepreneurship is what drives everything, what drives commerce. So it is unfortunate that banks do look at that, but um, that kind of is the reality. If you go to a lender that isn't a bank, they may be a little bit more lenient though.
Hmm.
And A credit score, that's just basically, the score that shows you if you are going to be likely to default on your payments or
Mm-hmm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that goes into a credit score, but the most basic way to get a good credit score is to have a credit card, maybe multiple credit cards, use them often, but be very organized in using them and pay back the credit card before any interest is charged on the credit card. So if you're buying something with credit cards, you're buying groceries with credit cards every week and just paying it back every week, there'll be no issues there. You won't get charged any interest, but you will get a good credit score from doing something like that.
Mm.
And something else to get a pre-approved for a mortgage is if you are uncertain of checking those boxes yourself, if you have someone to co-sign who has those boxes checked already, the bank or any financial institution will be much more ready to loan you that money, because they know that this person is more established and can do it. And worst case, if they already are a homeowner, they can say that, hey, I have a house, and you can basically take it if we default on all these payments, and the bank will look at that and give you more and probably charge you less if they see that there's a house there, that someone's willing to put a house on the table to allow you to buy, to get a mortgage as well. So those are probably the big things. To summarize, is
Mm-hmm.
financial stability and a good credit score, and potentially someone who checks those boxes to co-sign on a mortgage with you.
Now, does your status, like, can like a refugee claimant buy a house if he has money in Canada, or do we need to be a resident of Canada or citizen to buy a house here?
Now that's a good question. That's a very complex answer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I personally don't know the exact answer to that. I know that there are differences. Like we do have a foreign investment tax, if you will, tariff of 15%, to non-residents of Canada. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that applies to refugee status, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it applies to permanent residents
Mm-hmm.
rather than full citizens. There's a lot of differences that I think would be best discussed with an immigration lawyer, or well, probably I would start there,
Yes.
and see what they say. The certain statuses can claim, because it's it's a very complex issue, and I
Mm-hmm.
really just, there's some people that specialize in it that
Mm-hmm.
need to know all of that information.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Spencer, let me say thank you so much for your time. I know it's the first time I'm having you here, but I can tell it's not going to be the last time.
Yeah,
I'll look forward, in the near future to schedule you for another session. It may not be necessarily be on real estate, could be
yeah.
investment and any other topics. I do wish you all the best in your new home, new family. Being a father, so I'm very excited for you and to reconnect again. As you said at the beginning, we went to Ryerson University, which is now Toronto Metropolitan
Yeah,
University. They changed the name.
yeah.
It's been a pleasure, really pleasure to me personally to reconnect with you and for you to give something back to the Angolan community. Thank you very much, Spencer.
Well, Eddie, I'm very thankful you thought of me. I feel honored that you're thinking of me to actually come and help and try to provide support. I'm just really happy to be here, and I look forward to the next sessions. Whatever they want to be. I
Hmm.
think real estate's a good one, but there's many other ways to
Yes,
really
yes,
get on top of the financial situation
yes,
in
yes,
Canada. So
yes,
yeah,
yes,
there's lots more to discuss, I'm sure, and I look
yes.
forward to the next one.
Thank you so much, Spencer.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I will try to figure out how to get out of here. I haven't used this program before. And till next time.
Till next
Thank you,
time.
Eddie.
Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.
Olá, gente. Olha, estão aqui a me fazer questões. Vocês que estão aí no Instagram, o problema é o seguinte: eu utilizei um programa que tinha que conectar, sim, e digital. Yeah, e digital. Yeah, good conversation. Many more like this issue. Yeah, we will have more of this because we want to educate our people in owning. We have to start owning, guys. I don't care how hard it is. We have to start owning. Gente, comprei um software aqui e o software me conectou Facebook, Instagram, Facebook e YouTube. Não tinha, o Instagram não estava lá. Quer dizer, vocês do Instagram, epá, infelizmente o software não vos deu essa chance de verem. Mas se você ir no YouTube, vai no www.youtube.com/Angola Canadá ou facebook.com/Angola Canadá, vão ver a integridade dessa conversa. E a gente, olha, ficamos por aqui. Fiquem bem, vamos ter mais sessões do gênero em termos de investimento e muitos assuntos aqui. God bless you and bye bye.